If you're looking for the ultimate Vietnamese comfort food, this is the real deal. It's tangy, it's rich, and it's actually a lot easier to master at home than you think. Once you taste this homemade bowl, you'll never settle for the restaurant version again. If you still think all Vietnamese noodle soups taste the same, Bún Riêu is gonna change your mind. Today, I'm gonna show you how to make my childhood favorite in 4 simple steps. Let's go. Bún Riêu is a very understated Vietnamese noodle soup. It's tangy, it's fresh, it's gonna blow your mind. So of course, the first thing we're gonna do is work on our broth. Even though Bún Riêu is said to be a crab noodle soup, the foundation of the broth is pork-based. I'm using pork neck bone and pork side ribs to build our broth. So pork neck bone is the same cut that they use in gamjatang, which is the Korean pork bone soup. If you've had that, you know how flavorful that can get. Pork side ribs is something that's very commonly used in Vietnamese cooking. So when you buy pork side ribs in the supermarket, it comes in this long chain like this. And the first thing we're gonna do is cut these into bite-sized pieces. There's little pieces of bones across the chain, so what you want to do is just cut between those to get small bites like this. So the next thing we're going to do is parboil the pork neck bone and pork side ribs to remove the scum and impurities. Get yourself a medium-sized pot and put all the bones inside. Bring your pot over to the stove, fill it up with cold water, just enough to submerge the meat, and bring it to a boil. Add just a little bit of salt to the water and just wait for it to come to a boil. You're gonna notice all the scum come out, and that's when we're gonna rinse it. So we're gonna be using an Instant Pot today to tenderize our ribs and to make our broth. If you don't have an Instant Pot, feel free to use the stove. So to the inner pot, put the clean bones and put 2 yellow onions along with the ginger root that we cut up earlier. Fill it up with water enough to reach the max line in your inner pot. And I'm gonna be cooking this on high pressure for about 30 minutes. So while we're waiting for our broth to do its thing, let's cut up our vegetables and garnishes. I'm using about 8 tomatoes here. And what you're gonna wanna do is cut these into wedges. Another step you can take is to score the bottom part here and blanch it in hot water to remove the skin if you wanna be gourmet about it. But I don't know, it's just extra fiber for me, so I don't mind. And plus, it's a school day today, okay? I'm just trying to get something on the table. Let's not get extra. There's different ways you can say the name of this dish. If you're from the South, you'll probably say Bún Riêu. And if you're from the North, like me, you'll probably say Bún Riêu. Bún Riêu isn't a dish that I grew up with at home, but there is a very tender memory that I have. I actually grew up in Vietnam until about 7 years old. Up until this point, I was raised by a bà Yu, which is pretty much like a nanny, like a caretaker. She would walk me to school every morning, and we would have to walk through a wet market to get to the school. Every day, my mom would give us both, a small allowance to eat breakfast. And every morning, we went to the same Bún Riêu stall, and she would order me a small bowl of Bún Riêu for me to eat. But I noticed that she never ordered one for herself, and she would just wait to see what I didn't finish, and she would just eat that. Just weeks before I was about to leave to come to Canada, she surprised me with a big, fluffy winter jacket. When we asked her how she had the money to buy this, she said that she'd been saving all the allowance in order to buy me this jacket because she heard that Canada was very cold. So for me, Bún Riêu will always taste like love. I don't know if I've told that story too often because it makes me emotional to think about it. I was getting so deep in my story that I didn't even tell you what I was doing. So what I'm actually doing is plucking off the herbs that we're gonna be using for our garnish. So what we're gonna be using is a mix of lemon balm leaves, and I like some mint as well. If you ever get a chance to go back to Vietnam and try this dish, don't eat it at a restaurant. They have what's called Bún Riêu gánh. Gánh means to carry on your shoulder. And you'll see these vendors carry these big, heavy pots on their shoulder around the markets. And they'll sell this to you in a tiny little bowl, and you'll eat it sitting on a small plastic stool. And it'll be the best thing that you have on your trip, I guarantee it. And it's something that's gonna be etched into your memory forever. So please skip the air-conditioned restaurants and try try this in its most legit form. So a garnish that typically accompanies Bún Riêu is split morning glory, rau muống chè, but it's the middle of January in Canada, guys. It's really hard for me to find that, and when you do find it, it's really expensive. So I wanted to show you a different crunchy option that you can use as well. This is celery. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna use a peeler and just peel off thin ribbons of celery. And it's really gonna mimic that chewy, crunchy texture of the morning glory without the price tag and without the inconvenience. It's very hard to find authentic Bún Riêu in the restaurants in North America. And the reason is because we don't have cua đồng, which is field crabs. These are small little soft shell crabs that live in the rice patties. So because we don't have the field crabs, what's actually going to replace that crabby seafood flavor in our broth is the use of crab paste. And you can find this in the Asian grocery store, typically in the pickles section. What we're going to do is we're going to mix that into our crab patties. And what we're going to use is some ground pork, the crab paste that we chatted about, and some dried shrimp that we're going to be grinding up in the food processor. So to a large bowl, add your ground pork, add your ground shrimp. We're gonna be using this entire jar of crab paste. When you open this, you're gonna notice that there's this thick layer of oil in here, right? Although that does give it some flavor, I don't like to use all of it because I don't really want my kids eating all of this soybean oil. So I'm just gonna be straining a little bit of it out. So see that? See all this oil that we're not using? Let's throw that away. We'll put this back in here. 2 eggs, and season this to taste, okay? Just a little bit of salt, tiny bit of chicken bouillon, fish sauce, and black pepper. Just season with your heart, okay? If you want to be a little bit more precise, what you can do is take a small chunk of it in a microwavable dish, microwave it for like a minute or so, and then taste, and then just go from there. Oh, I almost forgot. We're actually gonna put a little bit of this fermented shrimp paste as well. This thing's intense, yo, so you don't need that much. But if you're down, go for it. And that's it.
Look at how beautifully fatty this broth is. Discard the ginger and onion and move this broth along with all the bones into a bigger pot.
So now let's saute our tomatoes and a little bit of garlic so that we can release some of that acidic flavor, which is really gonna help give the broth its signature tangy taste profile. Let's add just a tiny bit of fish sauce to taste. Okay, let's turn it off now. You don't want to cook this for too long because you're going to continue to cook the tomatoes in the broth. So you don't want it to be falling apart. We want it to still have a little bit of firmness and have some shape to it still. So once that's done, let's pour this into our broth. Bring it back to a boil and we're going to be dropping in our crab patties.
You can shape these however you want, but I like to do a small little football shape and gently place it into the simmering broth. Season to taste, a little bit of salt, chicken bouillon, some fish sauce. And if you're like me and you prefer it a little bit tangier, add some tamarind powder. This is an optional step, but I do like to rinse the tofu in some cold water, and that's because I currently have trust issues with seed oils. Cook your vermicelli in boiling water for about 9 minutes. Drain well and rinse with cold water. Shake, shake, shake. And here she is. Wow, is she not the most beautiful sight you've ever seen?
Now that the broth's done, everything's ready, let's assemble our bowls. So first we'll start with the vermicelli. Since we rinsed this in cold water, you're gonna wanna microwave this for maybe 20-30 seconds just to bring it back to a good temperature. I actually like to put the garnishes on last so they stay fresh. But come over here and we'll ladle this amazing broth and all the toppings onto our bowl. So as always, I love my red onion. Green onions, and cilantro. This is a really special ingredient. If you can get access to this, this is fried shallots. You can buy this at the Asian grocery store. They sell it in little containers. You can make it yourself as well. Maybe I'll show you how to do that one day. Let's eat. Wow, in such a short amount of time, we recreated a really legit looking bowl of soup. Let's give it a try. Oh my gosh, the broth is so rich, but there's this nice fresh tanginess that just shines through. Is it as good as the one in the Hanoi market? Probably not, but it's pretty damn good. And the pork here is so tender. This was just right. Honestly, this is so easy to make. If you are scared to make any Vietnamese noodle soups, this should be the first one. Guarantee you it's gonna come out perfectly. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and cooking my favorite childhood meal. Hope you guys are inspired to make this at home, and see you next time. Bye.